Okay. Good morning. Is everybody here in the back?
Yeah.
All right. Welcome in the second session of the day. Welcome to Drupal. In this session, I want to talk to you about configuration management in Drupal 8. We're going to talk about different, 3 or 4 different things here. We're going to talk about the basics, what configuration management is, what it's meant for, what is it designed for originally. We're going to look at the standard use case, or if there's any, just the most simple use case possible for it. And we're going to look at a more advanced use case involving a multi-site setup, sharing configuration among different websites, and also overriding certain things per website. And also, I will show you a quick example of a real-life example of a project we did using this technique of a multi-site. So, first, quick introduction about myself. My name is Jan Lemmens. I work at Amplexor. I've been working there since 2009. Started off as a Drupal developer. Started on Drupal 6. Moved on Drupal 7, Drupal 8 now. Evolved a bit more into technical design and supporting functional, giving support during functional design, wireframing, so that we can more tailor solutions to technology Drupal we are using, so it's a bit more cost effective amongst other things. So you can find me on Twitter, and there's also my Drupal.org profile page. So, like I said, configuration management. As most of you might know, if you look at a typical Drupal website, there are actually many facets to it. There are different elements which make up a Drupal website. So, in general, at a high level, there are 4 elements which are present. And you will see, I will explain in a minute, that these elements need to move a bit between different people, between environments. So, first element is your code base. This is, for example, part of it is Drupal core. All of your modules is part of the code base, your quick templates, your CSS files, etc. So that's the code base. Second part is the assets you have on your website. That means downloadable assets by your visitors. They are streamed directly to the browser from the disk. So that involves PDF attachments, images, maybe videos if you do not put them on YouTube, aggregated CSS files, all these things, those are considered assets. Third element is your configuration. That's actually what you're doing when you're building a website. You're actually clicking around in the user interface and building views, for example, content types, etc. So all these things are in configuration. And the last part is your content. Content containing taxonomy terms, your nodes, of course, your pages, etc. Also, users can you consider content, maybe session data. So, like I just said, these 4 elements need to move, or you want them to be moved between different people and maybe different environments. So when you deploy your solution to another server, which is a typical use case in web development, you're working on your local machine, you want to go to a staging environment, maybe to production, you will need to move certain of these assets around. Or if you want to work in parallel with one of your colleagues or multiple colleagues, you want them to have your latest configuration or the latest code base, etc. to work on. Maybe you also want to revert changes that you made locally. So you're working on something, things break, you want to go back to a previous state. That's all things that sound a lot like would be most easy working with files, of course. So to dig a bit further now. So previously, before Drupal 8, there was a big problem in this approach. So actually, the content and the configuration are actually mixed together inside the database, like this delicious tabernacle you see here. I will show a bit of food slides, and I hope you're not concerned about that, just to bring you in the mood for this evening, for the nice barbecue that's coming up. I heard it's pretty good, so I hope you don't mind. It's early, it's the tabernacle is good. So this is what the database looks like in Drupal 8, before Drupal 8, Drupal 6 and 7, for example. It's the content mixed together with the configuration. That's really annoying because you want to separate those two. Otherwise, you will constantly be working with outdated configuration, or you have to deal with some content which you don't need, etc. You have to distill this problem. So There were things invented like features, strong arm, you had to use a lot of hook update to make sure you can work with this configuration prior to Drupal 8. So that is not actually very nice to do. Probably all had that experience. So, to summarize this, in Drupal 7, code-based assets are on the disk, configuration and content is in the database. And now in Drupal 8, the configuration is also maintained on the disk. So the only thing that is in the database is the content plus some cache tables and state information. So if you look a bit deeper in Drupal 8, how this actually is set up in core. So this configuration system consists of two elements. You first of all have the config sync directory, which is containing all the files containing the configuration of your website. Those files are YAML files, and they're actually very nice to read. It's human readable, much better than what features, for example, previously extracted from the database in PHP files. And YAML files are actually used across Drupal a lot. They're also replacing the classic info files we had, also YAML files now. So it's really consistent with the way of working in Drupal 8. Next to the config sync directory, you have your configuration or config table in the database, which contains the active configuration at that moment. So if you're working on your website in the user interface in the backend, creating views, changing configuration, that is stored in the config table. Now, why is this table there? It's for performance reasons, mostly because reading all the configuration on the disk every page request would be cumbersome and slow. So there is the config table in the database, which is much faster, of course, by default. You can change it to the disk if you want, or to Redis, or to other systems. But by default, you have that config table in the database. So how do you exchange content between these two sources? It's a manual trigger for developers. So we call it import-export. So if you have some configuration made, you have created a view or a content type, or taxonomy, vocabulary, you want that to store in files, you have to trigger that. We call this an export, and it's flown to the disk. If you receive other configuration from other colleagues, for example, you make the move, we call that import from the disk back to the database. Those two moves can be made using the user interface in Drupal or using the classic rush commands provided. We will go a bit deeper in these commands later. Okay, example of such a YAML file in case you haven't seen one yet. This is the configuration for all the regional data, the regional settings in Drupal 8. In this case, this is a classic configuration for Belgium. You have the time zone, the first day of the week is Monday, etc. So this is a simple configuration file. There are also config entities which, for a content type, are much more expanded and obviously. So originally, the configuration system is designed for doing deployments. So as you can see here, you want your configuration typically to flow from one environment to the other. And again, further. Classic use case is from your dev machine to UAT, user acceptance testing, to production. So that is what it's built for originally. It's actually a very simple set of tools which you are provided with, coming from Drupal core. So you don't have to install any modules to get started on this. And it supports many use cases. It's really the philosophy of Drupal that you get a basic implementation or basic APIs and a certain way of working, but you can make your own workflow of it. So it supports many use cases. That's also what we're going to see later in the more advanced example. Of course, like many things in Drupal, it unfortunately does not work off the shelf at this moment. There's continuous evolution in Drupal 8, as most of you might know. We have constant changes and new features coming up in Drupal 8.4 in October and so on. So we have two issues at this moment. I say off the shelf, which means just a very basic implementation. You have to fiddle around a bit to get going with it. So first of all, the websites between which you are sharing content need the same universally unique identifier. And second of all, there's a bit of a bug with the shortcut module, which we will go into a bit further. So if you try to import configuration at this moment from a standard Drupal website that you created. So using the standard installation profile, you build your website, few configuration, then you set up another website with the standard installation profile. You will get a few errors if you import that configuration into that website. First of all, it's this warning here, or this error message saying that the site UID does not match. Site UIDs have to match between sites which share configuration or which exchange configuration or same configuration. That is a safety measure just to make sure that you do not accidentally import configuration into the site which is not the correct site. And there's also a plugin shortcut module, like I mentioned. There are a few entities created by the standard installation profile, shortcut entities which have different hashes, etc., which conflict, and that's the reason why it won't import. So the solution for the UUIDs is to just make sure that the UIDs are the same on both websites. You can do that using a drush command. It's a drush command used to set configuration by the command line. You can get the current UUID of a website using drush cget system.site. You get this UUID, and you can set it on another site by using drush cset. And then you have the same UUIDs, things will start working. For the shortcut module, there's a patch here, this link you can follow along what is happening there. Two workarounds for now is just remove the shortcuts which are present in the targeted website where you want to import the configuration. Just remove the shortcuts present and then do the import, it will work out fine. You can also quickly create an install profile which you can use in the future, which excludes the shortcut module, so when you install your site you don't have the shortcut module. And then things start working. In ideal world, maybe there are some other modules which are developed at this moment to. There's an install profile, config install profile, which makes you, during your website install, take directly the configuration from another site and install it. There's also a workaround which you can use. It's still under development. Ideally, what I would expect is that if you install a new Drupal website, you just have a field to paste in the UUID of another site, and then you're good to go. You don't need to drush code. That would be more user-friendly for beginners. So, but if you're familiar with drush, it's no problem at this moment. So, the standard use case, which is the most simple one, is to have all configurations stored in one single set. So if you do an export of your configuration at a certain moment in time, it exports all the configuration into a set of files, which means everything is there. Content types, vocabulary configurations, views, everything is in one set of files. It's excellent for standard usage. This is really the way to go if you don't want any issues, but as soon as you get more advanced workflows, like when you're working with more developers together, or if you want to have certain modules enabled on your local machine and not on production, there are ways to do that too. So this use case will get you very far for simple websites. So this was the introduction part. Are there any questions about this part? Any more info needed before we go any further? Things unclear? Or maybe that we're not correct?
Yeah, one remark.
Yeah.
Say that the shortcuts, they want to leave because there's a CPU UID.
Yeah.
That's technically not true. They want to delete an entity that has instances in the database. So what happens is your shortcut model creates data and there's a protection system in concrete to prevent you from deleting data, except for fields for some odd reason. There's just a fly out the window, which is in your database. To make you know this is an entity type. You want to delete this entity type in configuration as well.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah.
Thank you for the clarification there. And yeah, so but technically, if you disable the module shortcut or remove the entities yourself, then it will start importing.
But you don't have workings. Yeah, you can uninstall shortcut probably.
Yeah, best I think to create a profile which just install.
Config installer.
Yeah, indeed. Okay, so a year ago or something, one of our sales guys came to us and actually said, we have a new project to start working on. We have a new client in. And he said, we're going to build a new website of ECDC. Okay, sounds very cool. Hanging out with the guys in ECDC, backstage, Angus Young, drinking beers. We're all hyped up. Fantastic. Unfortunately, there was quite a bit of misunderstanding there. We didn't We are not going to build a website for ACDC, but for ECDC. Small difference there. Who's familiar with ECDC? They're the fake ACDC cover band. No, it's not true. So this is actually not that rock and roll. ECDC is the European Center for Disease Prevention and Control, which sounds kind of boring, but it's not. We actually learned quite a lot there. Very nice people to work with, very nice project actually. ECDC is an EU agency, and it was established in 2005, and their task is to inform all members of the European Union with new disease threats coming up, prevent the people of the different countries getting sick by printing out folders, providing material to doctors to inform the people of certain the dangers of infectious diseases like measles or HIV, those kinds of things. So they have a big portfolio of data on that, and different researchers, doctors, policymakers can download the materials from the website. So that's what it's about. The project started in 2016, September, and was finished just last month, and it is now in good life. So the main use case or the main idea for this website was actually 3 websites. So first of all, we have a portal website, which is this one. These are screenshots from the old website, by the way. So we have a portal website, which is the main information channel, and then they have also 2 different separate websites. This was all built on SharePoint. So we have EAD website, which is a yearly campaign they're doing. It's multilingual, 26 languages, European Antibiotic Awareness Day. That's one day that we talk about and make people aware of the dangers of antibiotics. And then there is the SKI website, which is an event website. Every year there's a European Scientific Conference on Applying Infectious Disease Entomology thing going on, and they have a campaign event website just for that event. So this was the use case, and project requirement was actually, we have 2 sub-branded websites. They will be presented with their own aesthetic, with their own content, but they should be similar functionalities, shared feeling, but totally separate from the main website. So important here to know is that their own aesthetic. Similar functionalities, we all know what that means. It will totally be different probably. But yeah, we started looking into details, and it actually, yeah, it was not that bad. So previously these websites were built on SharePoint. Some of you might be familiar with that system. You can have sub-sites there which also share functionality from higher up. So actually it was going on there, not too complex. So we started out thinking about how we will handle this architecture. Starting to think about, should we build different websites, totally different, separate code bases, separate databases? Should we have the 2 sub-branded websites integrated in one, together with the main website in one Drupal CMS, and do some tricks with switching templates or switching CSS files, etc.? Or do we go with multi-site, for example? So what did you actually want to achieve? We want to have the authors to have the same functionality across all the 3 websites. That's very consistent for the authors, so they do not need to be trained every time again when they work on a different website. So even if there's a 4th website added, it will work just the same. That was the idea. Should be easy to deploy. So that means that we don't want to deploy every website separately, and we also definitely would not want to maintain every of this website separately. And the concept was actually we need one CMS which serves 3 websites. The client also perceived it like that, as just build one CMS and we'll have 3 websites on it, because that's the way it was working in SharePoint technically. So that's what the familiarity was. So on the functional side, what we decided is we need 2 elementary things here. We need components which are general enough or generic enough that can be used in different use cases for these different websites. And we don't want any hard-coded pages. I just said hard-coded here. I mean that, for example, if you create a view, you use, for example, a views page instead of a views block. That views page gets a URL. You cannot change much about that views page. It's not easy to put text above the view or below the view. You know what I'm talking about. You have some header and footer regions, but it's still quite hard for simple non-technical authors to work with the system. So we actually want every page to be built by the authors in this pool. So every element on the page, every page can be built by hand. There's no pages which are preset or already present and cannot be changed. So those two together make up a solution that you can build different websites on. You can mix and match these different generic components in ways that will satisfy most of their use cases. On the technical solution, we decided to go for a multi-site. That's one technology. The other thing is ConfigSplit, which is a contributed module which you can install and works with the configuration system in core. So to go a bit further now, how did we do the technical side? So just for simplicity reasons here, I take as example a news website, news.onplexword.com, and events website, events.onplexword.com. So this is the classic multi-site setup you have here. You will see there's Drupal core, you have all your modules and your themes are shared across all websites. You have the possibility to have themes and modules for every website separately, but it's not in this picture. And every website on its own has its own database, which contains content, has its own files directory, because it has a separate sites directory. Also has separate content. This is the standard multi-site setup in Drupal forever, actually. So what we actually wanted to do is also have a part of configuration which is shared across, in this case, two websites. In addition to configuration which is still separate per website. So that was the end goal. That would be nice if you can maintain configuration which will be available on both websites and also override for certain websites certain elements. That was the idea. So what ConfigSplit does here, it allows you to actually split your one big set of configuration into different sets. Its typical use case of that module is to have on your local development environment other modules available, or other modules enabled compared to your production. For example, on your local environment, you want the Devil module enabled, classic example. On production, you might want to disable database storing, want to enable syslog module. That can be done using ConfigSplit, for example. But it can do much more. So what we just looked into is how can we use it to share configuration across these different sites and still override certain configuration per website. That was the idea. So I will now go step by step through the process, what we did. So I think 6 steps or something. So this is how the standard Drupal multi-site looks like. In the sites directory, normally you only have the default directory. Now we just have multiple directories here for every site one, and you have different settings files and different files directories. Important to know is this sites.php, which is a copy of example.sites.php, should be there. If I'm not mistaken, this wasn't necessary in Drupal 7. Now it is in Drupal 8. If you don't put it there, your multi-site will not work. It will not switch to the correct site. You just can copy it. You shouldn't even define the different websites in there. It can be empty. It just should be there. As long as your websites can resolve using the incoming URL on the name of the file, on the sites folder. Just to make sure that the sites.php file is there. Next, let's match all the UIDs for the websites we want to build. In this case, news.onplexword.com and events.onplexword.com. It might sound a bit counterintuitive because they're different websites, but actually we just want the same configuration on multiple websites. So it's no big problem, I think, to just set the UIDs the same for every website. It just allows us to deploy our configuration to these multiple sites. And then, let's enable ConfigSplit module. At this moment, we're just doing standard things. We just enable ConfigSplit, and we create one site-specific split. If you've worked with configuration split before, this is the interface in Drupal 8, or starting from the new version, the latest version. It's a bit different than the previous version of ConfigSplit. You just call it whatever you want. I just call it site-specific for now. You just fill in a folder here. It doesn't matter much because we're going to switch the folder later. That's the trick. Just create one split. And in the settings file for every of your websites in multi-site, you can configure that split further by assigning the correct directory to it. So what the configuration system by default does, it creates a certain directory in your files folder where it stores the configuration. That's not really what you want, because the files folder is typically not in your source control system. We typically put it right above or just outside the doc root. So you can do it right here. I'm just saying /config/sync. That means one directory next to the doc root called config. And then we have sync. Sync is a standard directory. If you do just a classic export of your configuration, it goes into the sync directory. That's this one. Next, for the site-specific split, this is in the settings file for the news website. For the site-specific split, we set it to /config/news.blexpert.com. And we also configure this setting here, which explicitly overrides the folder, which is set here. This won't be used actually, you just use this folder also. So we override the directory for every split. We do the same for the events.blexpert.com website in its own settings file. Step 4. So what happens now is everything what you put in that split, every configuration which you put in that split can differ between the websites. Everything you put not in the split is shared across all websites. A quick tip here: if you want to use the UI to do this, it uses a multiple select widget, which is only showing 5 or 6 elements at the same time. You have to use your control key to multiple select. You know the deal. That's hard to use. The improved multi-select works nicely with also config splits. We will show the demo later how that looks like. It's really easy to include things in your split. And you also can search for things so you don't forget to include things in the split. And then step 6, you just use Rush like you do before to manage your configuration, except for you use here the specific config split commands and not the... Do I hear some giggling? Yes. Indeed. My demo is not based on the latest Rush release, so in that case I still need this one. But indeed, you're just working out most of the standard Rush commands. I understood. Yeah, indeed. So these are specific commands for the previous version of Rush. And also nice is you can, let's say you want to create a configuration in site A, the news website, a certain content type. You can just go to that site, do your thing, and then export. But you can do the same also on the events website. Create a vocabulary, do the export, and everything will work out just fine because we set the directories correctly. See that in a minute. So you can work on both sides, do specific things, and choose one of the two sides as your main site to work on the shared things. That's no problem. So what happens actually? Everything that is in the sync directory is shared across all websites. This can be more than 2, of course. And everything that is in the split directory can be shared across, is specific for every website. For example, let's say you want the same search settings, the same settings for the content view, the same cron settings. Those are all in the sync directory, and you do not do anything with. You don't include them in your split directory. Let's say you want different settings for the contact form for site A compared to site B. You put that in the split. You want a different theme for site A compared to site B, you put it in the split. And for example, if you want on site A a content type news, which you don't want on site B, just put it in the split and it will work out fine. So this is another schema of how that looks like. So quick demo, just made a few videos to show the simple concept of it. So in this video you will see just the standard Drupal multi-site setup. So you see I have 2 websites, on Plex for News and Plex for Events. I will go to the split now. So this is a site-specific split, like we said in the slide just earlier. So it's just a standard setup, there's nothing configured yet. You can take a look at, this is the code base, so that's the site's directory. I have events on Plex.com, user on Plex.com, I have the size of PHP there. So just have a separate settings file for every website, that's the classic multi-site. There you see the overrides we did to the folder right here. There you see the contents of the different directories for configuration. The sync directory here contains the whole configuration, example right here. And every website also has its own configuration, own split folder like you saw. So Let's say we want to add a news content type, which is only relevant or to be used on the news.complexer.com. You just go to the Complexer News website. You go to content types, create a content type. We fill in the name, very simple, and we'll just leave it like that for now. And what we will next do is we go to the Drush command line and we export the configuration. Okay, you have the content type. Right there. So what we now do, if we only want this content type on the news website, we go to split configuration. And here you can see the more advanced or the more user-friendly UI. And we can blacklist just everything that contains news, in this case, one button, and we have blacklisted the whole configuration of that content type, the fields and all of the settings for the content type. So you'll see right now, the empty directories are empty. This might seem a bit small. I'm just doing Drush and then the command CSEX -y. That's it. So let's see what happened now. So you can see what happened here is that actually it just exported all the configuration files specific to my news content type only in the news.complexer.com folder. If we go to the second website then, the events website, we see there's no content type here. That's good, because there's nothing has changed. If we were to run the import command on this side, nothing will happen. That's exactly what we want. Now let's have a shared content type, shared vocabulary just for tagging, just a general vocabulary for categorizing content. That vocabulary can be shared across multiple sites. So let's add that one. Categories. Okay. That is relevant for news and events. So what we'll do here, now we'll just don't touch the split and just export. So there's no vocabulary here. I just run the export of the website I was working on. It could also be in the events website. And on the events website, in this case, I do the import. So now, if I refresh, categories is there. I just configured it once, deployed it, and it will appear on multiple websites. So that's the idea. You can also have a different theme per website, because the theme settings can also be configured separately per website using split. So you see both websites here have the same theme, and the same concepts are still in place here. You'll see that there is now, by default, right here, somewhere, system.theme.yaml file. Just have to make sure that I paste it in both places, otherwise it won't be present when I import on the other side. That's a trick you need to know if you want to override that. Okay. So now if we this is just an example to configure it without the UI. So here you can just say, I just copy the theme file in both directories, you just change it for the news or the events website to classic blog, the news website in this case. The theme to classic blog, and run import on both websites. One will take Bartik, the other one will get the classic blog. So I add it to the split here. Config import, both website. So it actually read the YAML files from the disk. It took into account the split, and now if we refresh the news website, nothing happens on the events website. If I refresh the news website, we get a different theme. So now we have two websites with most of the configuration shared, one having a content type, the other don't. One shared vocabulary, one theme on the other one, and on the second one we just have a standard. So that was the just changing themes for every website. So how does that work with this system here? So this is what it looks like now. So you see that we have 3 different websites, but for the authors and for the visitors, you will see similarities between every three of these websites. You will see, for example, you can use the carousel. This is fully shared. What is different, for example, is the permissions. You just prevent certain, on a certain website, authors to access certain functions. That's one thing. You can also if you say for a content type that is not to be used on the second site, just prevent authors to access it using permission. That's also possible. There are different themes for every website, different CSS. We have set a different logo in the settings file for every theme. So also no problem when we want to, for example, have a new paragraph type. We use paragraphs a lot here. That's how we do the more generic components. So let's say you have a new paragraph type video. We just have to work on it on one website, configure it fully, export, deploy, and it will be available on 3 websites. So if we don't do anything special, the functionality we build all the time is available on all 3 websites. If we do and split it off, then we can make configuration specific for one of the 3 websites. So that's the idea. So we have theme settings and language switch block also. One of the sites is multilingual, the other ones are not. Also permissions. Quick note about features. Should you still use it? Short answer is probably not. There's a long blog post about this, which has appeared in July by Mike Potter. It's quite going a bit deeper into what features was originally built for, how it was misused in Drupal 6 and 7 a lot, and how now the Drupal 8 configuration system can cover most use cases. We prevent using features on most of all our projects actually because of the extra complexity involved for the developers to compose and to architect the features, the problems we have with dependencies, etc. So we like working with the configuration system. There's also a lot more to contribute regarding sharing configuration like we did. It was just an ideal case for us at this moment. When we started the project, there are a lot of new things coming out, like config actions, config templates, which allow you to create templates to share configuration among sites, which probably will make this stuff a bit easier to do, like we said. Sorry? Okay. And there's also CMI tools, which is a more advanced implementation of, or in addition to the standard rush commands, which allows you to do more advanced stuff. There's things here you can read a bit more about the configuration system. You have the standard general documentation on Drupal or the API documentation if you want to work with a bit of the API there to extend it or do some more advanced things. On Drupal ISME you have the full tutorial on how to use it. There's the blog post of Mike Potter, and there's a technical deep dive also by Greg Dunlap right here if you're more into the coding things, also in configuration. Certainly check that out if you're starting on a new project. Also, yeah, there are a lot of things changing in the different versions of Drupal 8 that are coming out. We started on Drupal 8.2 on the ECDC websites. When going to 8.3, we had to update quite a lot of things to our way of working because things changed in config split also, and also the way config is exported and imported. So you constantly have to adapt yourself to what is coming in new Drupal releases, and you will notice that. Also concerning simple things like now media will come into core probably, and also the content moderation we just put in core if you already have built that before, you have to adapt constantly. So probably there are better ways when you start your project to do this too. This is just an ideal case for us at that moment in time. So to summarize, what we can do is we can have fast technical maintenance of all these 3 websites. If there's a bug we can solve it once. Chances that we don't have to test it on 3 websites because most of the configuration of every website is the same. So we're not that heavy on testing anymore. We can easily roll out new features because most of the things are actually shared. It's pretty scalable. And also for authors it's pretty friendly because they don't have to learn new content types or new configurations, etc. So that it looks the same for the authors too. Okay, that was it for the slides and the demos. Are there any questions or remarks?
Yeah.
Yes, please.
Yeah, there was went to a previous Drupal conference in Holland, and they were talking about in copy split about gray list sites. And he was not really able, the guy was not really able to explain what the gray lists are.
Sorry?
Blacklists?
Gray lists.
Yeah.
In blacklist you split up the configuration and another directory and it has its own file, like the system.data.yaml file. If you have the gray list, it just ignores what we change in the configuration and does not export your current state. If that's correct what I'm saying. Yes. So gray list just ignores whatever you do with that configuration. Blacklist just takes into account what you do with it and puts it aside. Yeah, splits it off. Gray list just ignores it.
Yeah, a question about the scalable nature. Have you felt any other limitations? Because the config system also has a very complex way of dealing with these dependencies between config items. So I can imagine while you can use perfectly fine for a content type, it gets a lot more difficult when I say I add a field to news content type in this site, but not in that one. But then again, I have view mode, so the view mode has this field dependency.
Yeah, I understand.
Goes down over there.
The separation from for field instance and your field basis, for example, yeah, you have to test these things out where you come, where you get to. If you don't manage to split it off nicely, you can always find a way out with permissions too. For example, unfortunately, there are still different permissions in Drupal 8. I think by which you see all the menu items still if you don't have access to them. We've been working on that, but yeah. It's not ideal for all use cases, but this use case we found pretty nice to work with, and don't have many problems with it for now. It works pretty well. Other questions? No? Okay. There is a session coming up later this day also by a colleague of mine, Jochen, which is going to explain a few things they did in the backend of Drupal 8 implementation at PRT, created 2 websites. Be sure to check that out too if you want this evening in the last session. And he also is going to give you an update on what's new in the Geyser module to make sure that authors get a more user-friendly experience in working with the space paragraphs and page builders. So please check that out too if you like it. Thank you.